I was saying a moment ago, before my video cut off at exactly 10 minutes because I had the wrong setting on my camera. Keeping it real, I don't have any editing programs or any way to splice the two together, so this is part 2 of a video about nuclear weapons. I was just going to finish it up in the title description, but I thought, no, there's too much to say here. I was saying the people have been hoodwinked, then it cut off. I was saying the people have been hoodwinked into believing that the government has their best interest at heart, and that, of course, this illusion has been quickly broken over the last few years. It's not because of anything specific, but rather divisive politics. However, the same type of cult mentality still arises that, when the last president was in office, everybody thought he was going to save the day. Now they think that Biden's going to save the day. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who's in office. We have a very slow-moving system and very quick-moving problems out there. But when it comes to warfare, we've seen how reckless politicians are and how little they care for general public safety. It becomes about preserving more than just America. It's preserving corporate interests. And so when people think that when their sons and daughters go off to war and they're fighting overseas, and they truly believe that they're fighting for a cause that's important, like, quote, terrorism, which was manufactured in part by the CIA, who trained bin Laden. There's this whole circle of problems we've created, all the coups that we've, committed. And I'm not here to talk bad about the U.S. I'm here to talk bad about underground U.S. policies and secret programs that are run with your tax dollars, without your knowledge, without Congress's knowledge. And the fact that we try to have a decent system where we respect one another, but if something's done on behalf of the U.S., then other countries are going to retaliate. And if you take out somebody's leader, that's very important to them, as we know. A president is a symbol. And when you, commit a coup and put one of your puppet supporters into somebody else's country, that is not, people aren't dumb, okay? There are a lot of stupid people, but they're not totally stupid, and people can see through the bullshit. But the point being that there has been this slow push to imperialism over centuries. People have always continuously pushed their might. However, it's done not today with armor and battle, axes. It moved on to weaponry and machine guns. Then it moved on to using air support. Now it's done with drones. Pretty soon, everything's going to be fought remotely. We're on a completely new frontier where, let's just say that if the shit really hits the fan, the reason to worry about nuclear warfare is because we now have, and I'm convinced of this, that countries like China and Russia have access and are already probably have placed viruses or these types of viruses that can be activated when needed within systems in the U.S. Or maybe even have people working within these positions that can implement this. It's nothing surprising. The U.S., if you're not familiar with Stuxnet, the virus that the U.S. and Israel created that took out all these, it basically made the centrifuge in these underground Iranian bases. It made them spin too fast and then explode. And they found out, of course, it was a virus made by us. It was super complicated. And it was brought in on a USB drive because these are closed systems. And most nuclear facilities or anything related to it, of course, are closed systems. And therefore, you can't just hack it from overseas. It doesn't mean you can't get people in there that support your interests. And it's a strange time to be alive because we're going about our lives without really understanding how tight of a tightrope we walk. And I don't even like saying that because it's not to make people fear what could happen. Because, yeah, a lot of people already have plenty of anxiety about their life issues. They don't need to worry about nuclear fallout or warfare. The point here being, it's possible. And if it were to happen, it would be very smart of you to at least have a plan and at least have a meeting spot for your family. If you live in a downtown area, that could be tricky. If you live on the outskirts of town, which way does the prevailing wind blow? What would be safest if there were fallout? I say this in hopes that people think about emergencies and possibilities. I live on the west end of the Columbia Gorge. That's why we still have snow when everybody else has melted off. We get this east wind that comes from the east. And if you're not familiar, Oregon and Washington, Oregon has one of the most variable climates in the entire world for the region of its size. It's got desert, it's got mountains, it's got the ocean, rivers, the most fertile valleys, and some of the most fertile valleys in the world, like the Columbia, or the Willamette Valley, right off the Columbia Gorge. So we have a weather system, and it's very unique because all that cold air pulls in from the east. Living where I live, if there were an attack on Portland, which is only less than 10 miles away, I wouldn't worry so much about fallout because I know the wind blows that direction. However, those are the gorge winds, and a mushroom cloud can go very high. So I thought, well, we'll have to play it by ear, look at the simulations, look at what could happen, and then figure out if we should pack up and go, because, we've all seen plenty of apocalypse movies where this shit happens. Doesn't mean it's going to, but I wouldn't hold it past humanity. And so something I always keep in the back of my mind, and I think you should too, not in a way of paranoia or, anxiety, but something to say, I can defeat this if it does happen, or I can at least minimize, the possibility of a casualty in my family or myself. And this goes for every hazard. Also, living in the Northwest where I do, we're way overdue for one of our massive every 300-year earthquakes. Or like 250 years, there's an earthquake here that's like over 9 that just totally devastates the West Coast. And they say when it happens, they expect all the bridges to fail in the Portland area. All of them, as well as the bridges going to the coast. Therefore, there will be no way to, and the airport, which would liquefy because it's on this soil that's liquefaction. It's like a sandbar, just like North Portland, where all the gas mains are. And so knowing these things, I know what to avoid, what areas you don't want to live in, like living right underneath a dam or something like that. You just never know, but you can't be worried your whole life. That's what I want to leave with here. It's not about being paranoid. It's not about being scared. It's about being aware and preparing, having flashlights on hand and batteries for when there's a power outage is the same as having maybe a gas mask on hand or, a bucket of emergency food, which your family could live on if the shit really gets bad. I mean, how much does it cost? $100 to buy a 5-gallon bucket of food at, one of those stores, a bunch of different types of meals that you could just stick in a closet somewhere and say, I feel better about having it. I have a big plastic thing that fits it's designed to fit in a standard bathtub. And it's a huge, thick plastic bladder, basically, that if there's ever a major, disaster, you have a limited supply of clean drinking water. Turn on your tap, hook this thing up to it, and fill your bathtub with, this thing inside your bathtub, which is basically your drinking water. And it's just things like that you don't think about. You're not going to want to be filling up garbage bags from the rain. So, at the same time, they may never be used, and I hope they're not. So be prepared. It seems to feel better than not being prepared, at least in my experience. And it doesn't have to be expensive. I'm not rich here. I bought most of my shit on discount. I think I got my buckets of food for like $65 at Winco. They're probably not the greatest, but in an emergency, I'll drink it. I fill up my own water jugs with tap water, and just hope I never have to use it all. So there's my rant. Hope there's never a nuclear war, and if there is, it's nice knowing you all, and I'll talk to you all next time. Be well now.